All right, so I have to come clean, Jay. I've been feeling like shit all day, and I need to tell you something.
What's that?
Okay, yeah, finish your vape.
What's that?
I'm going to need your attention. This is serious. So, you know how Mark Ellis is coming to town this weekend?
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
We just found out, but...
Very annoying.
As soon as we found out, you saw the live show live. I did not. You found out he was coming to Cincinnati, and you texted me, hey, do you want to go see Ellis and ask him to be on After Schmoe?
Or Side Town. Either or.
Right.
Yeah.
So I told you no. I told you that I had to work, and it was just too short of notice and that it couldn't happen, and you said okay. Behind your back, I actually asked him to come on the show just with me.
It's not surprising. I get that.
Because I wanted it to be like the old days, to be honest. And I thought that you might take my thunder, and I wanted to actually just have a sit down with my friend Ellis instead of worrying about you, you know?
I get it. I get it 100%. I think about that all the time, how to make those moves myself, but
yeah,
it just doesn't pan out.
I feel terrible because I feel like we have such a strong relationship.
I appreciate you coming clean. We
have such a tight relationship. We do so many podcasts together, but we've never done anything, at least I don't think, behind each other's back. And
I did ask Cobster to come on the Sight and Sound.
Oh, that's fine. That's okay.
Fair
I've accepted that we aren't going to be friends, but you know, I don't hold him to the same standard as I do you.
How would you feel if Makuga followed me on Twitter for? Makuga has no reason to ever follow me on Twitter. None at all.
I think he just now followed Schnepp.
Oh, really? Have they ever interacted together?
But anyway, so I felt so terrible. I ended up telling Ellis, never mind. So I'm actually not going to do that. So
I get it. I really do get it. That's a nice mall up there in Cincinnati.
It was really nice.
Outdoor mall.
Yeah.
You know, that Funny Bone used to be in Kentucky. Used to be in Newport.
Right.
Where he's going.
Then it moved across the pond.
It moved beyond Cincinnati. Like, it's way past Cincinnati.
Yeah,
it's like in between Cincinnati and like
right.
the next town over.
So we did go
Monroeville.
there. There's that infamous video, Ryan Snelling Honorary Schmoe, that's available on the SK Plus channel. If you didn't know that existed, that's when Jay and I went to Cincinnati to visit Ellis. We made a funny little skit video there. I don't think Ellis remembers that was you.
I don't think so either, because he was like, yeah, Ryan and Jay, feel free to come up, and Ryan, we can make a video again. I'm just like,
I think he forgot that was you. Maybe he thought you were Phil for a second. I don't know.
One of my favorite things, well, so when I went to California the first time, I saw a friend that I had only podcasted with, and I walked in the door, and he was like, my God. He was like, you're fucking huge. Like, he just didn't expect me to be as tall as I was. And this is at the time when I still didn't think that I was that tall. But it was also funny because it was California weather. I was wearing jeans, boots, a flannel shirt, as I often do. And he was just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be my reaction to Makuga. Because when you're watching him on Collider...
Look at those forearms.
When you're watching him on Collider, you only see the top half. But I've been watching his stories on his honeymoon and everything. I'm like, this man is, like, he's huge. Like, when did you lift all those weights? I mean, my God. He's crazy big. I mean, his biceps are like softballs.
You know who has a gigantic head?
Give me a minute. Schnepp?
Mark Hamill.
Oh, okay.
On stage, like Star Wars.
Mark Hamill at Collider, yeah.
Star Wars Celebration and whatnot. I was like, this is a normal looking guy. But in the movies, I'm like, he's got a big ass head.
Okay.
All right.
The idea that I had, though, if we did get to hang out with Ellis, I would want to do a sequel to Honorary Schmoe. That video, the premise is that I'm a fan freaking out about meeting Ellis. My idea, and I can reveal it since we're not going to do it, I wanted it to be the reverse. I wanted him to play that role and obsess over me, and I was going to act like I didn't care about him, and I wanted to play off of that. But
it's all about you.
Well, yeah, you have to hold the camera.
That's right.
I'm the host. I'm
the Gary V up in the office.
I'm the host that's been doing this for a year and a half.
I'm going to shoot my other video, a solo video.
All right, play the music.
With John, what's that guy's name that he tours with?
Caparulo?
Yeah. Me and John Caprillo up in the office. Hit the music.
My name is Ryan Snelling, and you are listening to After Schmoe. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with Jaye Williams. What up, brother?
That's me, J to the A to the Y to the E. Back in the After Schmoe studios. Not really. After Schmoe studios is more like you and I in separate locations, I feel like.
Maybe?
Lives on the internet.
The After Schmoe studios. Why can't we just call it a Sight and Sound?
Yeah, the Sight and Sound studios.
We do this at Sight and Sound. This is the Sight and Sound umbrella here.
Yeah, we've had to change the name a few times.
Right after
over the year of us being in existence.
Collider East.
That's
and
right.
Then something happened. And
TV Time Studios.
We didn't like Collider as much at one point, and then we were like, let's go with Nerdist East.
That's right.
I don't even remember how that happened.
We're trying to appeal to them. I don't remember. Oh,
maybe
was it because you did away with After Schmoe? No, because
that might have been.
When we started Sight and Sound, you had done away with After Schmoe.
Yeah, that's right. I left After Schmoe and then started Sight and Sound, and
I
then
scooped you up.
and then shortly after, we picked it back up.
It was offered to us.
Now we're back at Collider East.
Feels good to be home.
It does. Yeah, I missed it. So, look, we also do After Schmoe. We do After Schmoe, but we also do this other show on SK Plus on Mondays, exclusively on the YouTube channel. It's called Sight and Sound. And usually on Mondays, we put up what is our weekly show, which is our flagship. Yeah, that's the word I want. The flagship show
Sight and Sound Weekly. Yeah.
Sight and Sound Weekly. But sometimes we don't think that there's enough interesting topics to generate discussion. So sometimes we elect to do an after party, which is Jay and I just talking about whatever we want. Like, we don't even title those episodes until we're done. We just let it be whatever it is. It did very well on Monday on SK Plus, and I see you.
And the podcast feed, and our podcast feed.
It did. But I wanted to primarily thank Schmoeville because we were very happy with it. And look, we know why. We know why everyone came. But look, I've been doing a lot of thinking on this. People wanted to hear about the Andy Signore thing. They wanted to hear our take. They wanted to hear someone finally address this after, letting it digest over the weekend. So here's what I'm going to do. I read you loud and clear. From here on out, every Monday, Sight and Sound Weekly will be replaced by a podcast hosted by Jay and I, dedicated entirely to Andy Signore. This will be a weekly show that will go on as long as it has to for this foreseeable future, a podcast about Andy Signore. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Not a fan of that, but if that's what the people want, that's what we're going to give them.
Yeah.
I think people like the after parties.
Was it Parker that said he likes us just chit-chatting more than us giving our hot takes?
I think there's a lot of people. There's been a lot of people over the course of us actually doing that format that have, they just really do enjoy it. Obviously, we've talked about it before, I think, but we sort of embed a little tiny nugget of an after party into every single Sight and Sound Weekly. The opening 30 minutes is just a sort of shooting the shit, and people seem to really, really enjoy that. They seem to really, really like it, and that's cool. That's perfectly okay. The only thing that I will say about this past week's episode is I think a lot of people came to the episode to sort of hear about that one topic, and we talked about a lot of things.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people sort of, they listened to us for the first time, and we saw a few comments that said that they enjoyed it. So that's a good thing. That's a silver lining, I guess, of a shitty situation.
Well, it depends though. But I mean, next week they're going to get it weekly, and they're going to see an episode about a band they've never heard of, and it's going to be very different. But I did want to extend a thanks.
Yeah,
to all
the band
people
that they've never heard of called Eminem. That's what we're talking about this week.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So there was that. Thank you so much again. But we released After Schmoe last week on the Friday prior to hearing about all of this. So we did talk about it on Sight and Sound, but here we are again. The conversation has not really left us because, of course, Schmoes were able to address it last night. Look, I for one, I watched Movie Talk after last Friday's Movie Talk. I watched it after hearing the story or seeing the story break on Twitter.
Right.
So it was like really eerie to hear them talk about this discussion, having not known what actually happened in real time.
Right.
So that was really eerie. And of course, Harvey Weinstein has become a bigger story since then. And of course, now we know, we didn't at the time we recorded Sight and Sound, but now we know Andy has been fired. And as days go on, it looks like Screen Junkies is I don't want to say panic, but I think they are trying very hard to figure out what's going on next. What is the plan? I think they're trying to figure all this out. They've all been kind of silent, and that's the part that I don't think we've really discussed. Like, actually, Screen Junkies, like what's gonna happen? What the ruins that Andy left behind?
Right.
I think that's what's most fascinating here.
Well, right.
No, wait. I don't want to say that's the most fascinating, but it's as fascinating.
Well, I think it had been addressed across multiple platforms, and we touched on it as well, that Defy, the people who are the parent company of Screen Junkies, they are actually very much at fault for a lot of this stuff as well. But I think, anytime something like this goes on, there could be some legal matters that happen, and to go on a show and continue to put out content, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of stuff that still has to be sifted through. There's still a lot of stuff. There are people who we don't know that could be guilty of something. There are people that are involved in this that could be completely innocent, and you just never know. There's a lot of stuff that people have to sift through. So I think the entire community, we talked about this in After Party, I think it's worth at least reiterating for anybody that didn't hear it. I think, and Schmoes spoke about it, the community reacted in such a magnificent way, standing behind these women. And, justice, I feel like so far, at least, the right steps were taken. Obviously, there's still a long way to go. This is a tough journey that doesn't just end with one person getting fired, obviously. So I think the community needs to continue to be in support. When we did that episode, we spoke our mind. We spoke very openly and very freely. And not only did we do it without even really thinking about what, obviously because we are putting it out and distributing it on SK Plus, we did it without really thinking about anything going on. We have not heard one word from Mark, Christian, anybody involved.
My sort of thought process was, it was two things. One, I genuinely felt like Christian and Mark, just by addressing it themselves and the fact that it was so out in the open and that people were just instantly denouncing Andy, even though they might have known him for a long time or been very close with him, I felt like they gave us permission to do that indirectly. But at the same time, if it was a problem, they just would have said, we're taking it off of SK Plus. But it didn't. It didn't mean that we couldn't talk about it. It didn't mean that it wouldn't live elsewhere. It just would have been like, yeah, we can't put that. We don't want that up, and we would have said, okay. So,
well, I think at the end of the day, the important point that I'm trying to make is that this is a time for transparency.
Yeah.
In the industry.
Yeah.
Not just this industry, but a lot of industries. I think this was birthed. This whole issue was birthed out of transparency, I think. By a forced transparency, and I just want to be transparent with people and let you guys know it's the same thing that Mark said. He gave everybody a platform to say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Say how you're feeling right now, and we were never told not to say certain things. We were never told not to bring certain things up and all of that.
Yeah.
Obviously, our opinions are our own, but that was just never placed upon us.
Right. So another thing that happened, I think you're right. The majority of the response has been phenomenal. I love to see people like JT, people that we care about, April, get so much support from Schmoeville. But the thing that's also been happening is, like, people are already ready to point their fingers at someone else. Like, who's next? Like, we've seen Ben Affleck has been going up in flames the past few days because of his past actions and the fact he's addressing Harvey, but he never addressed his brother's issues and all that kind of stuff. People in this community are ready at any moment to point at who could be next. And I got messages and tweets and about Sasha's tweet. Sasha Pearl Raver tweeted in response to someone who said, please let Schmoes Know be clean. And Sasha just responded with a big LOL. People were sending me the screenshots, asking me to address this, asking what I thought about it. This is coming without any bias from me at all. I know that I'm under the Schmoes Know umbrella. That tweet is absolutely nothing until it is something. And right now, that is not something. People are wondering, who could it be? What could they be? What could she be talking about? Well, let's look at how it's different than anti-SCMOE. Sasha was a hired gun who was asked, for whatever reason, to not come back to Collider. She could have a million personal issues with any of those people in that office and just be salty about something. And that tweet could be addressing that. And if someone's salty, if Sasha is salty towards another person, maybe how she was removed from Collider, however that happened, that's not something I'm interested in, really. Or it's not something that we should panic and say, hey, this is like who at Collider is a rapist. Like, that's not what it is. So I want people to just relax and chill out. I think that, and we'll talk about the Schmoes Know Show, but the way that show was laid out and the way that you had Ace and people like Joel, an outsider who's come in, I think that itself is proof that Schmoes Know is as authentic as we think it is. So I don't want people to get hung up on this tweet because I don't think it's anything at all. I don't know how you take that, but that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't have enough information to really base any sort of thought around it. I'll just reiterate what I said on After Party. We are in Kentucky. We are very far removed from the actual situations going on in California. The only thing that I do know is that I have had very pleasurable interactions with a bunch of people in the Collider space and the Schmoes Know space. And I trust these people, and I trust, I find them to be extremely genuine. And, all we have to base our opinions off of sometimes are our own interactions and what we see with our own eyes. And I just hope at the end of the day, people form their own opinions about these situations, and they gather as much information as they can to make the most educated decision that they can, but also use your brains and think about it from as many angles as you possibly can. But yeah, other than that, I don't have as much information to form any sort of statement or opinion based on that. I did see it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's nothing until it's something. Thank you. So there's that. I hope that JTE and April and everyone else that's involved, I hope that they are finding healing from all of this, genuinely, because, man, it's got to be tough. And I hope everybody's as relieved as they can be. I hope that they are feeling a little bit better about all of it. And like you said, hopefully justice has been served. Let's talk about some sudden departures. And no, I'm not talking about the leftovers. We had 2 people leave Collider this past week. First
sort of unexpected. I feel like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yes, definitely.
Not that we have to know about these things. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, and people have left Collider before, but I think that I don't know. The Jeremy thing is very impactful, but I want to talk about David first real quick. David didn't have a contract or anything as far as I know. I mean, he's been there since day one, TV Talk. Him and Makuga have been the day ones, and Sinead when she was, doing it weekly. David is someone that we all grew to love. I mean, I know that I think he did some stuff with Screen Rant. He did some stuff with Dennis when Dennis was doing Think Hero, but we really fell in love with David when he started on TV Talk. And you could tell, talk about authenticity, you can just tell when that guy, not only is he just genuine and really brilliant, but you can tell that he's one of the nicest people ever. And he's so pure, even though I think he's more complex as well. I mean, like, I was fascinated to hear he went to seminary. Obviously, he didn't choose that life. I mean, I think that that's all very interesting as well, but he also at the same time has that kind of purity and authenticity that you don't get very often. So I don't feel like there's an evil bone in that guy's body. I've never heard him talk poorly about anybody. Yeah. So he is just absolutely a personality that I'm gonna miss, and I was someone who's a big fan of TV talk. I'm gonna miss David a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that I think about in this space, again, just to sort of touch on what I touched on just a few minutes ago, is just the genuine nature of the entire, I think, crew of Collider and Schmoes Know. And I think David Griffin really does embody that. He's always been a character in his own right, and he will be missed. And one of my first memories of David ever was actually probably the first time I ever watched the Schmoes Know live show way back in the day. I remember he was covering Comic-Con for the Schmoes, and he had done was it a Killing Joke maybe?
I think he did Killing Joke with
Ace. He did the Killing Joke review, and just he had a place at the Wangers table, and I just thought that he was doing such a good job, such a professional job. It doesn't surprise me that he's probably has other offers from other places. We are a part of this space as well, this pop culture discussion space, and from one content creator to another, even though I'm far removed from California and the things that he's doing, I definitely am highly appreciative and highly respect the things that David Griffin brings to the table.
Absolutely. So, David, you're not listening to this, but someone in the office tell him how much we've appreciated his work and time, and you'll be missed, and hopefully we'll see you around on IGN. I wish you all the best. Let's talk about Jeremy for a second. I feel like Jeremy Jahns' arrival was sort of a Campia experiment, if you will. That's sort of my take on that.
Right.
I remember when all that happened, and Brian and I had so many conversations about what that must have involved.
Right.
Get that deal taking place. Didn't realize, at least I don't remember it being a 1-year deal. So I remember when he said that, it felt kind of shocking to me.
I think it makes sense, though.
Yeah.
After
definitely.
It was stated, it definitely makes sense.
So,
also makes sense with that in context that it was somewhat of an experiment.
Well, I think there's kind of two conversations here. It's one thing to have maybe like Go 90 had a 1-year contract, see how well it will do, and they don't know if season 2 is up in the air. Like,
right.
That's one thing. But for Jeremy Jahns for Collider to not try to keep Jeremy Jahns, and I'm not saying they didn't try, but I feel like it's different than him doing Go 90 Awesome-tacular first season and then working at Collider in general. I feel like those are two separate things, but all things considered, he's deciding to move back to Seattle. He misses his family. So Jeremy Jahns is obviously the biggest movie YouTuber, arguably, and I remember getting so excited. Collider was making this big move. Even though personally I wasn't a fan of Jeremy Jahns. I don't watch his channel. I didn't get into his videos, but I thought that he was going to do a lot of good for Collider.
It was a very sports move.
Yeah.
To sort of, sign up a hot property.
LeBron going to the Heat, essentially.
For sure, yeah.
For the big three being Schmoes Know and Jeremy Jahns. So
I'll never forget his appearance on Schmoes with Chris Stuckman that one time when he was acting like a wacko.
We were talking about how much he was twitching.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Looked like he was freaking out like a coke addict or something. Yeah.
And then we eventually learned that he has ADHD or something like that.
Well, yeah. No, I think the thing about Jeremy that I've come to appreciate a lot like you, I've never been the biggest fan of his channel and the stuff he puts out, not because I think it's bad or anything. I just didn't actively watch it. But I think, and this is a safe thing to say, so I'm going to say it. I think he's sort of a polarizing individual just because he has such a big personality, and some people either like that or they don't. I think he does a good job at what he does. And
Max Landis.
And his approach, absolutely. Take this video down. I think eventually, I remember, so I sort of really started watching heavily around the time when Jeremy Jahns was brought into the fold, and I thought he came into his own sort of groove. It was sort of strange to get used to, that sort of really charismatic personality that he has to just be on that table. And of course those people already exist. You had Campia, Schnepp, Mark, Christian. I mean, all those people obviously on the movie talk table, but I just think he brought his own vibe to things. as well. But, hopefully he finds whatever he's looking for by moving back. I can definitely understand that and feel where he's coming from. But the other thing I will say, because this is After Schmoe, and we do talk about Schmoes Know stuff, Jeremy Jahns has really, really, really deep roots in the Schmoes Know landscape.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
When I started doing my history lesson things, one of my favorite sort of name that just randomly popped up one day in the earliest days was Jeremy Jahns calling into the show. I remember he did an entire episode talking about his favorite Batman films, and I think they even did a thing specifically on the 1989 Batman. And I just thought it was a really, really great thing, and I think the bond that the Schmoes specifically have with Jeremy Jahns being early people in the YouTube landscape of movie review, pioneers in the movie review YouTube landscape. I think it's real, and I think he will be missed.
Yeah.
There's a few things about this move that I find interesting. We've talked about it a little bit off air. Look, I'm going to say my perspective. I could be completely wrong. Somebody would have to correct me, but it seems to me like, and right, wrong, or indifferent, a lot of resources were being put towards creative resources, time, energy, money as well, I'm sure. Mark Ellis's health was put towards Awesome-tacular.
Yeah.
And I think by him no longer being there, this really does free up a lot of potential resources for the future.
And that's, I was going to say, this is going full circle, because there was a time when Jeremy Jahns arrived and we were like, what's this going to do for Collider? And it's weird how the conversation now that he's leaving is, what's this going to do for Collider? Not in like, what a horrible downfall. That's not my attitude.
And I don't want the conversation to go into like, did Awesome-tacular succeed or did it fail?
I'm not concerned about
I don't
that.
want people to think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, to be honest, again, like I said, Jeremy Jahns isn't my favorite Collider pundit, and I wasn't a fan of his videos. And to be honest, he felt a lot like, I really love people like Christian who have really hot, interesting takes on movie talk, and they're talking about someone like Christian understands how studios think because he operated in that system, and Jeremy Jahns kind of felt like the guy who was repeating a lot of the points that were already made, kind of like the fourth chair of movie talk, and so I just didn't never really get a whole lot out of him, and I never was attached to him in that way. So I don't have anything bad to say about him, but that's where my mind went when he left. Is I remember, to me, it just looked like all these people will have all this time now to devote to other things, and I kind of just started thinking about what this might mean for Collider now that they have all the time and resources freed up. And Daily Schmoe down?
I have a bone to pick, and I didn't plan on bringing this up, but I'm going to anyways. I stumbled upon a discussion thread on Schmoeville, and I'm sort of talking about, these places being freed up in the Collider sort of bullpen and who was going to take them, and that's fine. That sort of conversation's 100% fine to speculate about and this and that. I don't necessarily know if it works like that, but whatever. But some of the things that were being said were like things like, Collider is falling apart.
No.
They're losing host. Look, the people who have left have actively left to pursue other things. This is Los Angeles we're talking about. People who work in as successful as it is, an extremely niche sort of community and a niche industry. But what I will say about that is we brought up a couple weeks ago The Ringer, another successful pop culture outlet website that is doing very, very well.
Extremely well. Not as well as Complex.
Do you know how fucking big Complex is? And then went out in this whole discussion about advertisers and this. Trust me, it doesn't work like that. And to say that it's like falling apart is the most ridiculous and ass backwards perspective. I'm sorry. That is just not right.
Because in retrospect, I think the Campia experiment or whatever it was that brought Jeremy back, I think Jeremy brought his fans over, but ultimately it ended up being for Awesome-tacular. I don't think Jeremy Jahns had enough value for movie talk for his departure to affect anything. That's my honest take.
Yeah.
And to the people that are worried about all the hosts leaving, did you forget that John Roca just joined full time.
Exactly.
And he carried TV Talk while Makuga was gone. And
Clark Wolf is an even more active participant. I mean, more so than Christian can't even get on the fucking table because people are so, you know what I'm saying? People are so constantly revolving.
I would be more afraid of Collider going down the tube due to Christian's maternity leave than I would be Jeremy. Like, that's just my honest take.
Yeah.
And obviously, that can't even tank it because there are so many great people there running that thing all the time.
I mean, and it's just such a frustrating conversation to see because I do remember when we first started this before, you know, when Campia was still there. And this isn't a Campia discussion, but it's just the fact that people were saying that it was becoming a little bit monotonous, a little bit stale because we were getting the same thing every single day. It had this schedule, and that's fine, and things need to have schedules, but we weren't seeing Collider News with Ken the way that we are today. We weren't seeing comic book shopping the way that we are. It was harder. We can now sit on this podcast and daydream about new Collider content, and the actuality of that becoming a reality is way more possible. And the fact that because more resources, I mean, I used to listen, you know, because we do this podcast, we listen to a lot of things that a lot of people might not know exist in the Collider and Schmoes Know space, things like the Knapsack Files. I'm sure there's a lot of people that listen to that, but anyways,
I think that's like low-key a very popular podcast.
I think it probably is.
Like, even outside of Schmoes.
Just the discuss. I don't see those discussions in Schmoeville, but regardless, my point being,
I would love to hear from Ken about that.
Oh, 100%. I think some of the times that I've listened to these things, a lot of people constantly would bring up, oh, we were working on Awesome-tacular. We were filming for Awesome-tacular. We were writing, coming up with ideas for Awesome-tacular. I mean, this is a big chunk of space that is now open, and I think that is exciting. The fact that, you know, they're probably moving to a new location, yet to be 100% confirmed, but regardless, that's pretty much going to be a thing.
They're moving. Yeah.
The fact that they've got this new content coming up. I mean, the Schmoedown being as big as it's ever been and doing some crazy things. I just think that if you do not have a positive outlook and positive perspective on where Collider is heading, then, man, I don't know what to fucking tell you, man. Like, get your head out of your ass. It's a great space, and it's a great time to be a Collider and Schmoes Know fan.
I said this a few weeks ago, comparing them to Screen Junkies. Collider is winning.
Well,
and what's
it's? I mean,
you're awkwardly laughing. And I don't know why.
It's just a funny conversation. Well, it's not a funny conversation to have now. It's just a strange conversation to have now. There's a new kid in town, and it's the Ringer. That's the new competition. I just talked about this the other day. There is no such thing as competition with these internet brands like this. You have the ability.
Well, look at fucking Hector Navarro. He works for 8 different people.
Yeah.
Clark, she's doing some stuff for Stardust now. Like it's like I said about Sasha, it's hired guns,
and they're supporting they're supporting the greater pop culture discussion community.
Whether they purposefully know this or not, they're all helping each other.
Exactly.
If you become a fan of Hector Navarro, you follow Hector Navarro regardless of. So
you think Dan Murrell would ever come over and be on the Schmoedown if he thought, well, that could hurt.
And people might forget, like, they might assume that Dan coming over to the Schmoeville got more fans. No. Those fans followed Dan and became a fan of Screen Junkies because of the Schmoedown as well. It works both ways.
I mean, how do you think Schmoes Know got involved with AMC Movie Talk, Collider to begin with? It's because they were sharing these personalities.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got onto this topic, but
I don't know, but it's fantastic discussion.
In this conversation about Collider falling apart.
You know what I would love to see?
What? Chris Stuckman's own show on Collider.
No.
Stucktacular.
No. JTE comes home.
Well, of course. I think that's crossed many people's minds. And I would probably willing to bet that's probably more the case.
I don't know what his skill set is, because if he came over, then there would be 3 engineers. Maybe they could use 3 engineers. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Adam can be utilized. I don't know.
JT Movie thinks he can finally have you on the show.
How's the Schmoedown app?
It's great. You want to play it after this? I lost a Finstock today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Finstock is amazing.
I know. You know how bad I am with names? Just as a side story. And that's
Tom
fine.
Dagnino J. God.
He'll always be Finstock to me. Ryan once came up with this trivia game for Parks and Rec, and all of the answers were just remembering the names of people, which...
That wasn't all of it. It was a majority. But
yeah, like 98%.
Who said this? Who did that?
Yeah, and
it was
I'm
people's
just
names.
so bad about that. Today, I could not remember for the life of me until the 5 countdown came from Christian what Admiral Akbar's name was.
Oh, really?
Even though I do an impression of him. I couldn't remember his name.
Who do you think I am? Chris Skaliski?
I don't know. I think Chris Skaliski has a strange relationship with the Schmoedown. You know, we talk about SK Plus stuff here. We'll talk about this. I think he listens because it's about a show that he works on, but I think he has a love-hate relationship. One of my favorite things to do is to read the comments for the Schmoedown.
Christian and Mark, I hate your fans.
I'm sorry, not the Schmoedown. I meant the Schmoedown Rundown. He has a love-hate relationship with the Schmoedown Rundown because one of my favorite things to do is to go to that podcast and see what he said. And it's almost always like this very aggro thing towards the show. And I love it.
He used to do the same thing. When we talked about Schmoedown on here, he used to argue with us in the comments section.
I get it, man.
Yeah,
hey,
I do.
Skaliski. I get it, bro. I get it. I love it. Keep it up. I think you should turn it into a character. I think you should do your own podcast.
That'd be funny, yeah.
Correcting the Schmoedown Rundown. That would be hilarious.
He could just do a guest spot on our show.
Yeah, just record your own take. We'll just play it.
Listen, fuckers. All right, let's talk about...
Frank Janish better realize.
That was so loud.
Sorry.
Is Frank the controversial one on the rundown?
Who do you think it is?
Aaron?
The silence between them?
Let's talk about Schmoes Know Show number 304. We're back. It's live. It was live last week. Oh, yeah.
It was amazing last week.
It was. It was really good last week. It was awesome.
Think about how crazy that is just for a second. JTE appearing on the show and arguably having, let me just say this, arguably having the best week in Collider and Schmoes Know that JT's ever had. That amazing Schmoedown win. And, I mean, absolutely coming to play on the Schmoes Know live show.
Yeah, and then the next day he was on movie fights.
I'm tearing this shit down.
The next day
I'll burn the whole motherfucker.
He was on movie fights and refused to sit next to Andy. So
yeah.
Dan had to sit by him. So
whatever you did that week, JT, just do it every week. Like, you came to fuck shit up.
Hopefully it'll end better every other time, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we do here when we get into the live show portion, Jaye Williams has his stream of consciousness notes. I am talking as slow as possible while Jay pulls it. Oh, you got it up on your phone. Okay, yeah. Go ahead. Take it away. I'll take a vape.
These are your Schmoes Know live show, stream of consciousness notes brought to you by sightsoundpod.com. You're making a hissy noise with your vape over there. It's too long of a drag. It's going to burn up that coil. I'm 15 minutes in, and I've forgotten to take notes. Joel works at a school. Good to know. How did Ken hold down the fort and take on all of this work and then have time to make the news? What world is this? I think Ken is hammered. I'm super proud of this show. And that is your Schmoes Know live show, stream of consciousness notes brought to you by Sight Sound Pod. Before we get into this, I have to say, I stopped taking notes after the big discussion portion of discussing the whole issue that we talked about, because I don't know, I wasn't in the mood. I wasn't in the mood to be super jokey and fun and like nitpick all these little things and write jokes about them. Like I was moved by everything that everyone was saying. And I just didn't feel like it was really the right time to continue on with it. Just pick back up like, oh, they're done with the sexual harassment discussion. Let me just talk about the fact that Ace is wearing Perry pants again. Like, I just didn't really feel up to it. That's an honest take. Hashtag transparency.
Christian's going to be pissed.
That's okay. That's fine.
You're right. It is okay.
Yeah.
Alcoholic LaCroix?
Actually, I knew that was a thing.
Yeah.
Somebody at my work, because they knew about my passion for LaCroix and Pamplemousse. Passion for Pamplemousse.
Passion for Pamplemousse while wearing Perry pants.
Listening to Passion Pit.
While... Okay, just go ahead.
Okay, so they came all the way across my work, and I work in a very big building. They walked all the way across the building to tell me that they had stumbled upon an alcoholic version of LaCroix.
Yeah.
And it was nice to know that Ken was drinking that. I don't know if he drinks LaCroix regularly. I would recommend it, though.
So there were two outcomes to that scenario. I can either imagine you saying, it's just a thing, or getting annoyed that someone is telling you about something you already know about.
It was really neither of those things.
Okay, there's a third option.
The third option is just in general, there was just, it was essentially the more complex version of It's Just a Thing. It was, there's no reason for you to tell me about this because I'm sure I'm going to hear about it from multiple sources over the course of time. You just wanted to be the first one.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
Yeah. It's like when people find out a celebrity died on Twitter.
Exactly.
They want to be the messenger to someone else that didn't know.
Or when somebody tells you about a band that they just got into that you've been trying to tell them about for 2 whole years.
Do you know anybody like that?
I know many people like that. You're one of them.
I liked hearing that Joelle was worked. Well, she later said she works 5 jobs, which is nuts. But yeah, you brought up the point how she said she worked in a school. I like hearing that because I like hearing about the people that are still keeping the grind alive. I think John Roca was one of those people before he got hired at Collider.
I was about to say, I think Joelle's the new Roca. Just the person out in California that we can really, really relate to. That's the content creator grinding.
Yeah.
I love it.
Not going to lie, though. Every time I see her at the main table, I get excited. I'm like, yes, there's going to be a segment about us. So
I know. Where the hell is the segment?
I was a little disappointed, but...
It's never going to happen unless Christian is there. It's just not. And then even when he is there, he's going to tell some story about animals causing a ruckus
that's not
outside.
Fair. Ellis remembered to give us a shout out, knowing that we were by Cincinnati, right? He told us,
but he forgot that I was there the first time.
I was going to make the joke that he told us at the very last minute and didn't give us any heads up. But
I just realized I had another Collider thing that I had to bring up, but it's okay because it's about Ken. So,
I really wanted Ellis to meet my mom. So, anyway, I liked hearing about that from Joelle. Hopefully we'll get it after Schmoe, whatever the hell that title is.
You know the first thing that your mom's going to say to Mark Ellis, right? Are you this Christian that he's always talking about?
No, she wouldn't. For one, Ellis...
Are you this Christian that is always annoying my son?
My mom, my friends love my mom. I think that if I introduce my mom to Ellis...
Yeah,
Ellis will forget about me immediately. They will drink margaritas. They will have a great time. They'll dance to Van Halen, and I'll just be on Twitter.
She always tries to get me to take tomatoes home with me every time we record After Schmoe together.
She's got tomatoes.
I don't like tomatoes, and I don't have the heart to tell her. I just say, okay, yeah, I'll grab some. It doesn't happen.
This isn't really... this isn't Schmoes Know related at all, but when Ellis brought up Zach Morris doing cool things in high school, I wanted to ask you, what's something like really cool that you did in high school?
Something cool that I did?
Yeah. Like where people would look at that and be like, that's the guy. That's cool as shit.
When I was in media class, and just computer classes in general, I always wanted to, I was obsessed with it, obviously, like creating videos and music and all that stuff. And
we know.
I wanted to establish how further ahead that I was than other people, so I would do something like above and beyond. Like my first video that I ever showed was something that I spent a long time working on.
Yeah.
That way I could establish a rapport with my teachers to just where they would leave me alone to do whatever I want. So I used to take the media pass and sign out from school to go shoot like B-roll, and I would just go to Lexington and do things.
Yeah.
I went to Lexington and just bought CDs at a record store. Yeah.
I have a similar answer, even though the place that I ended up going instead of school wasn't nearly as interesting.
Yeah.
McDonald's drive-thru.
Oh, there you go. I thought you were going to tell me about something that somebody I know had happened to them. They would leave class and go have sex in the football team's locker room.
Hell yes.
They got caught one time.
That's what I should have done. This is awkward. Because, like you said, it's weird to have notes over this whole Andy Signore thing.
Yeah.
I started to tear up when I saw Riley break down.
Yeah.
Because it's so rare that we see these people be so vulnerable in that way. And I think the overall thought that I have here, because I don't want to dissect this conversation, the overall thought I have here, again, is to reiterate what I think is further proof that these are genuine, authentic people. The fact that Joel would come in, feel so comfortable and at home, speak so highly of these people, to see Riley break down, to see Ellis get really, really pissed and address his fans in the way that he did. He was in their face.
Yeah.
And we don't get
Rightfully
that a
so.
lot. It was like I thought I was watching Eminem rap about Trump. It's like, hey, Schmoeville, we're not going to tolerate it anymore. I'm drawing the line in the sand. And if you cross it, you're done. And he had a little Leanne LeCoutre in him. That was him laying down the kibosh here. Also, Ace, we talk a lot about how Ace does a great job all the time. He was lyrically speaking about this subject so eloquently, so respectfully and intelligently.
Rekindling his days in the punk band.
What? Because lyrically, is that what it is?
Yeah. The thought crossed my mind while he was doing that. I was like, man, he's like tapping into his days listening to like Anti-Flag and Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that.
I saw Anti-Flag at Warped Tour.
Did you really?
I hated it.
They have gross hair.
They're also really old.
He signed to a major label. What a bunch of sellouts.
Yeah.
That's not punk rock at all.
No, not at all.
Signed to the corporate.
Tell him, Ace.
But no, it was a fascinating discussion, and
what I was gonna say, I do want to hear what you're about to say. Sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to say that I was so proud of these people, and also one of my biggest takeaways from the whole conversation is that even though it was well thought out and something that Schmoeville needs to remember moving forward, because I think the whole Ellis made a great point. The attitude has to change, and Schmoeville is the group that can really get those gears going.
Right.
So I think that's great. And then my final takeaway from this entire conversation is that it could have gone multiple ways. They didn't even use it as an Andy Signore bashing segment. Like they talked about the behaviors. They talked about the overall picture. They talked about our reactions. They talked about supporting the women, the victims of all of this. But I never felt like they used it as, there's this guy that we thought we knew. Let's talk about all of our experiences. Like,
right.
I think I could have seen this coming 6 months ago. I remember, like, it was never that anecdotal in a way. And I think it's very interesting that it didn't go there. And I think that also in a way speaks to how intelligently and maturely they approached this topic.
Yeah. And I mean, I think so much gave them the platform to feel comfortable in doing this, not just because of where they were and the type of show that they were on and the people that they were surrounded with, but again, because the community as well. They sort of fortified the ability to do that. You know, it'd be a lot different, which it shouldn't be, but it'd be a lot different, I think, if it was like a very, I don't know, the situation was a little bit more unsure. Like we didn't sort of have, like it was more polarizing as it was, but I mean, they attacked it head on with purpose. And I think everybody spoke their mind, and Mark did a great job at giving people the platform to do that as well.
Yeah.
And just hearing their own personal experiences and personal accounts just in general, speaking about, you know, this horrific set of circumstances. It did. It made me proud to call myself a Schmoevillian, and it made me proud to be involved with it. It was just very, very nice, I think, to see that, and to see that unity, and to speak to Schmoeville, to sort of back up with what you were saying. I've said it before. I've gone on record as saying how amazing the community is, but I do think more than ever there is a responsibility placed on us as a community and within the community to sort of self-police this. And I say self-police, but I don't mean it in the way that like there needs to be some sort of witch hunt or whatever it is, because I'm sure there's some people out there whose minds are evolving and they are changing over time and sort of coming to terms with some of this stuff and how they interact with women and just human beings on a day-to-day within their day-to-day lives. And I just think the community itself needs to be aware of that, but they also need to be very aware that there does need to be some changes made. So yeah, I applaud everybody. My hat's off to everybody. I think there's a bright light in the horizon to sort of move towards.
Absolutely.
Even though this is, a dark time, I think that it's going to get better for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the very small, brief moment that Ken had. He sort of replaced Christian in a way.
Yeah.
Where he went off on that tangent about people reacting to his trailer reactions. I loved seeing that out of him.
We need to talk about Ken.
Because this is something that we talked about off air. We don't understand the idea of a trailer reaction as far as having the trailer sit live in the video. That's just not something we want to do, but we get it, but we don't.
It's a piece of content. We understand why it exists in the space.
Yeah. But so it's funny to hear because he kind of had the opposing view, whereas we're like, yeah, we don't see any reason to put the video in the trailer, but he was like, yes, I can put the video in the trailer, but you can also, you're here to watch me. If you're coming to a trailer reaction, the trailer exists as its own thing. And seeing him get pissed and hammered, as you said, I thought was very special, and it reminded me of a Christian rant. I kind of wish it went on longer, to be honest, but it was a really good moment.
I have two takes on this. One, I do want to address this whole thing because I've been experiencing it a little bit on our own YouTube channel. Just the fact that it seems like, for whatever reason, just people have this expectation and this criteria of what specific types of videos have to be on YouTube. Like, I do reviews for music that are different than other people's music reviews because I don't want to do the same thing as everybody else. And honestly, I've gotten a little bit sick of just the standard music review. And I just kind of give my opinion on it. And you can either choose to watch it or not watch it. But when did a community just decide like trailer reactions have to be this one specific thing? Last time I checked, the internet is a place to express yourself however really you want to, for better or for worse. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. If you don't enjoy it and you don't like it, then don't watch it. It's pretty much that simple. To go off on this other thing with Ken, I forgot to tell you about this, but I just had this moment of just elation and love and respect and just admiration for Ken Knapsack this past week. While everybody was off at New York Comic Con doing their thing, Christian had a baby. Maybe Ken had a baby. I don't know. We don't know who his girlfriend is for sure, but we do. We think it's Grace. Sure.
I know it.
Anyways, so while all this was going on, this guy was doing more stuff for Collider, stepping up to the plate more so than he had ever done, I think, in his time so far with the company. I mean, hosting Movie Talk and doing a fantastic job. And I love what Mark does, but I love what Ken did on Movie Talk, bringing his own flavor and also doing the news stuff, also doing whatever stuff behind the scenes we don't know, but then staying late after hours to do this trailer reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I just had this really big moment, and I wanted to tell him, but I knew that if I would have just sent a tweet out or whatever, would have gotten lost in the ether. And I knew that if I couldn't DM him because he doesn't follow me, so I actually DM'd Christian, and I was like, I don't know if you're going to see this. I don't know if Ken's going to listen to After Schmoe, but please tell him that how much I appreciate what he's done. And like, I know sometimes people don't like hearing appreciation and stuff like that. Whatever. I don't really get that. Tell me how great I am. But regardless, like I wanted to vocalize it, and he, I guess, texted Ken. Didn't hear anything back, but that's fine. Regardless, I just wanted him to know because he did do more. And this is a guy who's talked about on his podcast that sometimes he just doesn't feel like doing stuff sometimes. And I get that, man. I get that. Sometimes, you know, you're not jazzed up to podcast. You're not jazzed up to do a video, but you need to do it. But it's just very much appreciated. And whether he likes it or not, and I know he's got his Schmoedown stuff he's doing as well, but I think this guy, all he did was just cut together 1 week's worth of a great reel for Mark Fernandez to look at and say, we have got to fucking use this guy more, because he is, I mean, he's one of the best in the space. Yeah. Hands down.
Well, let's look at the other side of it, too. I think New York Comic Con is still going on.
I don't know what's happening.
It's been a week long.
And it's so much different than San Diego Comic-Con.
And Schmoes came back before it ended. I think it's crazy.
I don't know what's happening.
I feel like they're still uploading New York Comic-Con videos. But regardless, everyone killed it. Ken did a great job at home plate, but everyone worked their asses off.
And the Schmoes Know Show last week. We talked about how great it was. Yeah.
Everyone worked. Some might say, Jay, that they all flourished.
They were all flourishing.
They all flourished, and we appreciate it.
Could this be due to Ken's new love life? Did he just check a box off, and he's just like, I am feeling great?
So, Grace put up a new Instagram story.
Oh, yeah?
Where Ken was laying on his back.
I saw that.
In a carpeted area that looked like someone's apartment with her dogs running around him.
You didn't pay attention to it close enough, did you? You didn't see that in the mirror, Christian Harloff was there directing the scene, orchestrating this whole thing to make us think this is all an elaborate storyline for the Schmoedown. In fact, some would say that if you beat the Schmoedown trivia like 10 times in a row and you go undefeated, that you can unlock a cut screen that is an additional bonus storyline from this Grace and Ken thing. Yeah.
Speaking of Christian Harloff, I'd like to introduce a segment called What Would Christian Rather Do?
Okay.
Are you ready to play? What would Christian rather do? Sit at home with a newborn amoeba that doesn't even know he's sitting next to her? Or be there for Jedi Council tomorrow to talk about The Last Jedi trailer?
Hey, man. Look. I don't know what he would rather do, but let me just say this. That guy got it all out of his system. Let me tell you about how this went down last night. I ended up not finishing the show live. I went to bed. I don't remember what time, but I went to bed and I couldn't sleep. I was tossing, I was turning, so I turned the TV back on. And I noticed that the Schmoes Know Show was still live. Yeah. I had started it, or I had stopped it maybe like 35 minutes before. And I was like, why the fuck is this on? So I clicked on it, and they were still, I had stopped it right when they started this trailer breakdown. They were still breaking down images.
That's how long the trailer was. The video was 35 minutes.
Flourishing in this trailer breakdown.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing.
It's funny how it ended up being 35 minutes without everyone else.
Yeah.
Like, because they made it a point to dismiss everyone, and there was like 20 minutes of the actual show left.
Do we have confirmation that it was officially just Mark and Cody there?
I mean,
Beardo was Beardo there.
I'm sure everyone
Beardo,
else was probably in the studio, but I mean, I don't think they were sitting at the table anymore because they just had no reason to do that.
Right.
But I think people chose to not listen to Christian talk about it. It's a shot for shot, but yeah.
I did think it was funny that was worried about having the energy to do it. Like, not I get it why he wouldn't, but I've had those worries too before going on air for something. Like, man, hopefully I've got enough energy to entertain people here. It was just interesting. I thought he did a great job, man. It's a great video, or it was a great thing to watch.
What would Christian Harloff rather do? Sit at home with his newborn baby, or be at New York Comic Con with his best friends?
The baby.
Really?
Yeah,
the baby's going to keep you up at night. I mean, it barely knows you're there. It sleeps all the time.
There's no Star Wars at New York Comic Con. He would have rather been at a Childish Gambino show studying Lando Calrissian.
What would Christian Harloff rather do? Go to Makuga's wedding? Christian has had... I'm not downplaying.
He's missed a lot of stuff.
I was gonna say, I'm not... This is actually a joke. I'm not downplaying it.
Yeah.
I totally get what he's... I just think it's funny how so much shit happened to occur in this length of time.
Can we go... I just want to run down.
I just think it's hilarious.
I just want to run down a few things. Last Jedi trailer dropping.
Yeah.
New York Comic Con. The
Makuga's wedding.
The Schmoedown tournament. Singles tournament. The Schmoedown app. Also being released.
It's got to be killing him. He can't promote that thing.
Well, he's definitely promoting it on Twitter.
I know, but...
You know what? Okay.
He wishes he was in that commercial that Ellis made.
I actually have something funny to point out about that. I love Christian Harloff to death because for whatever reason, he's literally turned into the Schmoedown app, their essentially IT department and their customer service department. Every tweet that I see like when I go through my timeline, I love his new Twitter profile pic because it's that red background, and I see it. And I'm like, oh, Christian's tweeting. What is he saying? And it's always like, we're fixing a new version. Forward this along to the
Please be patient.
Yeah, and it's just hilarious to me.
Forward all your further complaints to Chris Gillespie.
I know. I mean, this is a guy that's passionate about this,
Yep.
man. Like you know.
You know what? Christian really does love the Schmoe.
You couldn't have gotten like Max to respond. Maybe it is Max.
I just imagine Christian like in a straitjacket, like just freaking out, like foaming at the mouth, like going nuts because. And I'm not saying he hates his family. I'm just saying like I feel like he is having a hard time not working.
Can we? I think Christian's like video game playthroughs or whatever are hilarious. You know how he's like, look at this fucking guy. Like, yeah,
let's kill this prick.
Can we get him to do like a VR version of the movie Trivia Schmoedown like app, just where he's like,
what does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay, very good.
But just where he's like, fuck this question. Who wrote this? Chris Gillespie?
Okay.
Do you want to play when we get off here?
I do. You already asked me that. Of course I do.
Sorry.
The last thing I want to mention.
It's a great app. You guys did a great job.
We skipped around. We did talk about Christian's call, but the last thing I was going to mention was Chad Michael Collins. Are you aware that that is Tiffany's boyfriend? Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why he was at the Star Wars premiere.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had no idea. Are they still dating?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
So he was a guest.
Be a little awkward if not.
He was a guest early on when I started Schmoeville for the first time. This is the second time that I've seen him on the show. And I remember the first time.
He's a good-looking guy.
He is a good-looking guy. I don't know if he was the most interesting guest the first time that I saw him.
He just seemed to legitimately enjoy being on the show.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you get guests and they're not quite sure what this is. But he just loves doing it, I feel like.
I do think that. But I remember him not having a lasting impression. Actually, Brian had one of the funniest jokes. One of my favorite inside jokes that we had was about him. Because the last time he was there, he was promoting another sniper movie that he talked about today. And they asked him about working with Tom Berenger, and he was like, oh, it was the best. And somebody at the table was like, did you learn any acting tricks? And they're like, oh, yeah, all kinds of stuff. You're around those guys. And so someone asked him, what are the tricks? And he goes, oh, well, I don't have any tricks.
I just lived down the road.
And Brian and I used to laugh our ass off at that. But anyway, I was worried because, again, I thought it was funny that he was promoting another sniper movie, but I thought that it was going to go the same direction and not set itself apart, not be a separate interview. So I was very shortly worried about that happening, but it ended up not being the case. I thought he was enjoyable. I thought this was the appearance that I favored more, and so I enjoyed our time with him. I thought it was cool to hear from him again. So I think he's a genuinely good dude. So
for sure,
yeah, I thought it was a good time all around.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It just seemed like, it can be kind of obvious, I think, when somebody comes into this space that people aren't as familiar with, maybe, or they don't have a relationship with, because it's such a tight-knit group of friends. So when somebody does come in that is just as much part of the friends group,
yeah,
I think you can really, really tell. And that's sort of what it felt like. It just seemed like another person stopping by, sitting on the couch, even though he was at the table.
And again, I mean, authenticity is sort of the theme of this show.
100%.
But I mean, I felt like he was the guy that like just felt privileged, or maybe not privileged, but he felt what word do I want? Give me a word. Any word, Jay.
Belittled.
Yes, I think he felt belittled that he was being asked about his career, and I think he appreciated that, and he didn't feel like he was like there to promote, but he was happy to talk about whatever, because he was just happy to be on the show. So
yeah, you done?
He felt really belittled, and I respect that.
You done? Is that it? Because I have one more thing I want to throw in there that I forgot to throw in for the Collider portion.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I know Mark Fernandez stopped listening when we started talking about the Schmoes Know Show. But if you're listening, Mark Fernandez, I want to thank you. I'm assuming you had something to do with this, but today, our worlds could not have collided. No pun intended. They could not have collided anymore when I refreshed my YouTube feed, my subscriptions feed, and I saw that Gary Vaynerchuk was on Hot Ones. I was so excited about this because I was a Hot Ones fan before I was even a Collider fan. Now I do work.
Did you know Collider was owned by Complex?
So I was a fan of Hot Ones before Collider, and now I'm doing work with Collider,
but we don't get to put the Collider banner.
Yeah, we don't get to do that
anymore.
anymore. Thanks, Brian Davids. And so Gary Vaynerchuk, we're gonna get an email from Christian about that. So Gary Vaynerchuk, for those that don't know, and sometimes I don't even know if other people that like we work with know about Gary Vaynerchuk, but if you want to know essentially like why we've shaped our business model the way we have and how we view things, check out his shit. But definitely watch that Hot Ones episode. Did you watch it?
No, but because I didn't know.
It was great.
I had no idea Collider was owned by Complex.
Okay. That's a joke that I just never want to hear repeated again. It makes me so furious.
Not because of me, though.
No, not because of you.
Don't
when
get mad
people
at me.
tell me, so there's this place called Complex. It's actually Collider's parent company. We know! We do a show where we have to pay attention to the things that most people don't pay attention to. Of course, I know that. Of course.
Well, no, to be even more fair to your point, we knew about that before we even did the show. At least you did, because you were already... Anyway.
When you started doing the show and I was doing research on Collider, I was like, holy shit.
You told me.
Yeah.
So
like,
anyway,
Complex is fucking huge. Sneaker shopping.
My reaction to Gary V being on the show was I instantly thought of me telling Christian about Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
Because
I know who's that?
I did, yeah. I was like, Christian, because I was really into Gary V's material.
Is that the new center for the Pacers?
I've tried very hard to talk business with Christian. Doesn't happen.
Right.
Doesn't happen. But one of my entry points was going to be Gary Vaynerchuk. So I asked him, hey, have you heard of Gary V? I'm really into that, and this is how I'm shaping my business. Yeah.
Me and Gary V up in the office.
Yeah. talking about ownership and leverage.
Yeah.
So Christian was like, yeah, no, I never heard of him. But it kind of reminded me of like when he found out Justin Theroux was going to be in episode 8 and then he had to watch The Leftovers.
Sam Esmail being involved maybe with the Obi-Wan movie.
Yeah. It was sort of one of those moments. And I just like to think that Gary Vee was on the show because of Christian Harloff, even though that's not the case.
Well, I just hope that if anybody's listening to Collider that didn't know about, or I'm sorry, anybody that works at Collider that didn't know about Gary Vee and maybe he impressed them. Let me just say this: we our own work ethic is we share the same sort of vision that Gary Vaynerchuk. Excuse me, I can't say
Jay
his name.
and I share the same vision as Gary Vaynerchuk in The Ringer.
Absolutely, yeah. So
if there's anything you need to know, here's
please hire us.
here's what I can't wait for. I can't wait for Christian to have all this time on maternity leave, watch all this, and yes, I'm saying that on purpose. Watching a ton of Gary Vee content, because if I want, he comes back to Movie Talk and we see him air quote arbitrage.
Can I tell you exactly what he's going to say?
I will lose my shit.
That's not going to happen. Here's why. He's going to watch one Gary Vaynerchuk video. He's going to get 5 minutes, 15 minutes into it, probably 5 minutes, and he's going to be like, this guy's kind of a prick. Because he can be kind of a prick sometimes. And that's Christian's tagline. So,
guys, thank you so much for joining us on After Schmoe. My name is Ryan Snelling. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. Sight and Sound, that's a thing that I do. You can check out that podcast. Again, if we have new listeners, thank you so much for checking us out and giving us your time. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Not only are those same podcasts there, but we also put up some videos and sometimes original music by Jay and myself. So definitely go hit us up, and you can also hang out with us in the Sight and Sound Facebook group. If you like what Jay and I do, join the conversation. Come hang out with us. That link is in this very description. Jaye Williams.
Yeah, for sure. You can find me at Jaye Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both. Also, every single Friday, probably when you're listening to this podcast right now, Friday nights, I drop my music podcasts on Sight and Sound, and it's a good time. And I'm getting the community more involved with the discussions as well. You don't just have to hear my voice; you can hear my voice, and also I read the opinions of other people. So come hang out. Maybe you're not into music. Maybe you used to be into music and you're not into it anymore.
How you doing?
And you want you're trying to refine your passion. Well, I've been there. I've done that. I'm trying to usher people along. I'm trying to usher people
Jay
along.
Williams' music show is the Collider Movie Talk.
Apparently. Did you know that Collider is owned by Compa?